begin. I'm going to start this with a personal story. So, 2016, there was an election. We all know the results and are still feeling it. And it's been 7 years since then. And 7 years, and then next year will be 8 years since the results of that election. A while. But when I woke up to the TV seeing that, the response from my gut was basically, it was surprising, but it wasn't the most shocking thing I've seen. And the reason for this was simple. From 2006 on, America seemed to be heading in a different direction, and people were making it more clear as time passed what direction they wanted to go. But then in 2009-ish, right after Obama was elected, the Citizens United, the FEC ruling, came down. That alone isn't the reason for the downward spiral. And with what Obama was given, he did pretty well. Though I would also like to give his predecessor some credit. After 2006, after the most important midterm of this century, even more important than 2022 or 2018, that President Bush started to triangulate with the Democrats in Congress at the time. And then the Democrats took over and were given a lot of resistance every step of the way with the Tea Party that eventually morphed into Maga. And things kept getting more divided from there. And it reached a fever pitch in 2021 with J6, January 6th, on a day that would have otherwise been really happy. Georgia finally got back to the roots I was familiar with. It voted for a black man and a Jewish man, both Democrats, to represent them in the Senate. And at that time, they were going to be sworn in for the counting of the Electoral College votes. But not much later that day, and with a lot of coordination by the president himself and his staff, what looked like a protest turned into a mob, a riot. And unlike 9/11, where it took a bit to sink in, but I saw the reporting on ABC News after going to church that day to mourn the losses and wonder why something terrible like that could happen. January 6th is something I saw in real time at work, and I freaked out. And I potentially prevented somebody from getting a job where I worked that day, and the store manager wasn't very happy about that, but he was the best one that they had recently. Suffice to say, I no longer work there, but that's not the reason why I left that company twice, because I chose to, because I resigned. But seeing that in real time, just because I wanted to watch the news, just because I wanted to celebrate that America was finally going to come back to sanity. Well, that didn't really happen. And we're still feeling that. So in this Whatabout report, I just want to make very clear to the audience, anyone that is listening to this, people that disagree with my opinions. In fact, the more you disagree with my opinions on stuff, the more you should be listening to this and only this. You read the title. What about the next insurrection? What I have here is a hypothetical letter to a far-right dad written by Bard, Google's AI experiment. And I am not going to need this at all. If it isn't already clear yet, there isn't going to be another attempt at an indirect. Well, there is going to be an attempt, but the odds of that being successful are way less than the attempt before. I have a feeling there will be another effort to overthrow the U.S. government because a lot of angry Americans will not like the result of the next election. And any thoughts that dark Joseph Robinette Biden Brandon isn't going to win a second term, that's out the window. That's what my gut says, and that's the opinion that a lot of Democrats and the DFL, for those of you in Minnesota, are starting to get. Like, with all the consequences that have been happening this year, 2023, that Trump was indicted, he is facing multiple lawsuits, he has to testify in a case about raping, and this isn't Stormy Daniels. That was consensual, and it was an adult film actress doing films that only adults should look at, but he cheated on his wife back then. The hush money thing, Fox News has to pay a bunch of money to Dominion Voting Systems, which makes, for the most part, optical scan balloting machines, which are the most secure. They are Scantrons. And that's it. You can't hack these without a hacksaw. And even if the votes were flipped, there are audits as they're being counted. And if there is an anomaly, they can be spotted like this. And this is one of the reasons they teach algebra and math with variables in school, because that, on paper, could pick it up very quickly. You don't even need a computer for that. And I was an election judge in 2022. I didn't say any opinion on anything. I just stated the facts about what the equipment is, how it works. It's a big Scantron for adults, and you have to verify somebody's identity if they want to register same day. If they're already registered, there is a super secure system that Hennepin County, at the very least, has to make sure you are who you say you are. You can scan their ID, or you can enter it in like I did, impressively fast, using 3 fingers on the 10 key, and the way people under 50 type for that. But why would anyone attempt it? I don't know. The logistics are completely against you if you try. And make no mistake, the mindset the Democrats should have and in all likelihood will have going into the next election season is we don't have to think about winning. That's a done deal with all the culture wars, with all the losses in the by-elections, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and the ballot initiatives, with Republicans basically wanting to turn America into New Gilead and throw away everything that is truly American, baby, cradle, and all. The Constitution, free speech, the Second Amendment for the out group, the people who you are told to hate for some reason, and you've never met, you only got a distortion, a caricature, or straight up lies, a lot of which I addressed in the transgender video. And in 2024, how are we going to run the table, given these recent results, given 2022, which the red wave didn't happen? And once again, Michael Moore's gut was correct, even though I don't particularly enjoy his commentary. His gut has a way of sensing how sentiment turns into votes. And despite all the laws about voting integrity, which is just providing barriers to the ballot box, there is so much anger at the Supreme Court right now that anything to stop them is on the table, including a quick, radical fix by invoking the 14th Amendment, Section 3, against them if they once again overstep. And the Dobbs decision, Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health decision that allowed states to ban abortions without any restraint, couldn't have come at a worse time. If it was left to the states 10 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, in 1980, people were of a calmer mindset and willing to have more nuanced policies coming out of it. But now, no. The grand old party used to be like, that was a lie. The GOP, the Republicans, have not been around as long as the Democratic Party of the United States, or Democrat Party, if you prefer, which is the oldest political party in the entire world. America invented political parties, and Democrats were the first. We know that as of 2023, the Democrats are the more forward-looking progressive party, while the GOP is truly old, but it's not referring to the age of the party so much as the voters, the apparatus, everyone pretty much supporting it in ways that actually matter. And more anger, more violence, more shootings due to gun laws that are nowhere near strong enough. If every state adopted Minnesota's gun laws, it would go down significantly, because in Minnesota, you need to get a permit, you need to know how to use it, and a lot of people with guns, even NRA Life members in this state, permitless carry is just a non-starter here, and gun owners will dissuade anyone with mental health problems from getting one. They want to make sure that people purchasing a weapon know how to use it, And if you don't, then people are going to stop you along the way from doing something that is way easier in a lot of other states. And also, we have the castle doctrine, and I still think that's a good idea, but I've been forced to modify my position to the castle doctrine should be the law, but it should end at the front door. You no longer get to go out into the sidewalk and fire rounds at the younger generation because you don't like their opinions on stuff. I know that is what really happened with those in those events where somebody showed up at the wrong door or a ball was into somebody else's yard, that it was the anger of kids these days basically wanting a better world without the church, or with the church's power greatly diminished in American society. By letting people be free to join and forge their own culture, rather than having it come down from above, rather than having somebody in office say, this is how you are supposed to be an American. But that's not freedom. It just isn't. And every American knows this. But Maga doesn't. And in 2025 or late 2024, of course, there's going to be another attempt of something like January 6th, and it will have angrier, more deranged people than the last attempt, which actually works out in America's favor, in favor of Americans. Because, to anyone asking, what about the next January 6th? Well, here's the thing. President Biden will be the commander-in-chief. He'll be given a second term. The Electoral Count Act has already been passed to prevent the setup of the next January 6th. And the National Guard will just be there before day zero. I don't know the exact dates. I'm not in the military. And even if an informant gave me documents saying this is our plan to keep the Capitol safe, I'm not going to tell you. No American would. A smaller group of angrier MAGA, whether it's Trump or DeSantis, will attempt this, but they'll be stopped like the first attempt by the National Guard. They won't even get into the building. But that all notwithstanding, for those of you asking, well, what if they're more surgical? What if they try anyway? What if this group actually breaches and then a bigger group shows up or something like that? What if they do find a way to breach the barriers and stop the count and try and declare their candidate to be the king of the country because they're angry and because they think they're better than everyone else and deserve to be at the top of society without any real evidence, with no scientific evidence, to be frank, not even the IQ scores. Once you put in all the context of that, And what if it goes around the entire country and there is complete and utter chaos? What is America's response to this worst case scenario going to be? I'm going to tell you right off the bat. President Biden will declare martial law, as the Constitution will allow him to do, just like it allows him to fire the Maga 6 Supreme Court judges with only the 14th Amendment and not even an impeachment proceeding. He could just say, you tried to overthrow the government by being Supreme Court justices, taking bribes from the wrong places, therefore you're out. Or because you are married to Ginny Thomas. Biden can declare martial law, and during that period, he will have something that no member of MAGA has, or ever will have, and that is fighter jets. Fighter jets, fighter jets, fighter jets, fighter jets, fighter jets. I'm sick of the insanity of people who think, yeah, they can rip America apart and then bring the new apartheid. It's not going to happen. And the reason is fighter jets. And once those come out, that'll be it. It will be over. MAGA will be done forever. There might be a lot of casualties, but it will be over. It will be done. And then we'll be free. After that, we'll be free. We'll be free to come back to an America where agreeing to disagree won't cause an existential crisis. We'll be able to ask questions like, not something like whether or not climate change is real, but how should we address this? What is the best way to address this? Something like the 2008 campaign, where both Democrats and Republicans had competing plans to solve real problems. We will finally be able to come back to reality after that. But until then, maybe remind these MAGA wannabe patriots that they're not. And all you have to do is remind them. They don't have fighter jets. They never will have the fighter jets. They won't have the drones. They won't have the big toys that a single furry could wipe them out with, if need be. Fighter jets. If there's any simple response to the Red Hatters and the neo-Nazis and all this hate spewing around, it's that. And if I see that nonsense in public, I'm going to start using that phrase to respond to their idiocy. So that was the Whatabout report on the next insurrection. And as always, subscribe if you like, and share if you care.